winter to remember. It was a wet and grey December. Sally had been self-isolating for 13 days because her teaching assistant had tested positive for COVID-19. It was a historic year of 2020, when the world had many urgent issues to deal with. Climate change, a universal problem, and the virus, a major concern worldwide. In Europe, there was a struggle over the Brexit deal. Isolation affected people's mental health. Financial security was threatened as businesses floundered and the government borrowed money to furlough people. There was sadness, anxiety, fear, loneliness and frustration among the population of Britain. For Sally, an only child, it was hard not seeing her friends. She lived in the north of England, in an area which was not too prosperous. She heard the adults discussing food banks who helped poorer people by distributing food which had been donated by individuals and businesses. Sally's family were lucky. Both her parents were working from home, received full wages. That meant there was enough money to survive easily and to help Grandma with gifts of food and small items. Sally missed her grandma, who had been shielding for several months as a precaution against catching COVID-19, a horrible illness. Grandma was considered vulnerable and did not leave her house even to go shopping, but she did sit in the garden in the summer months. Sally missed Grandma's hugs, which were no longer allowed as the virus was spread by contact. Sally recalled the many times she had coloured pictures at Grandma's house, done jigsaws, played on the old swing in the back garden, eaten Grandma's home-cooked stews full of nourishing vegetables. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Sally was lonely and was sure Grandma must be too. After breakfast, Sally's mum said that since Sally was at the end of her quarantine, she could go for a walk in the woods beyond the garden. It was her last day and Sally had tested negative for the virus. Sally loved walking the well-trodden path through the woods. It was a quiet time of the day and only an odd dog walker would be about. Sally dressed up warmly. She enjoyed the scent of the trees and the earthly smell beneath her feet. It gave her a peaceful feeling. The light penetrated the bare branches, lighting up a big old oak tree. Sally loved this ancient tree. The markings in the bark seemed to smile at her. It had a presence, an energy which she felt as she leant against it. Sally closed her eyes and lost herself in the wonder for a moment. The woodland was a world of its own. The trees had been there before Sally was born, and some were much older than her grandma. Sally sighed deeply, filling her lungs with air, feeling relaxed and content. Just then she heard a sound. Sally saw nothing but a slight flicker of light which quickly disappeared. Gazing at the spot, she was aware of a thin mist among the sparse undergrowth, but as she focused, it was gone. Strange, she thought, and walked on puzzled. Sally seemed preoccupied when she went home and asked if she could ring Grandma. Mum agreed and told Sally to remind Grandma that it was winter solstice 21st of December. Sally asked her gran to explain about the solstice. Grandma said that it marked the shortest day of the year, but also the longest night. Since ancient times it had been celebrated as a magical time, a time to renew, to be rid of old ideas which no longer serve us, and to replace them with positive ideas for the future and the lengthening days ahead. Sally told her grandma about her walk in the woods and the mist she thought she had seen amongst the trees. That would be nature spirits, said Grandma, working away to prepare everything that is sleeping under the ground. They are making conditions ready for regrowth in the spring, so that the cycle of life can continue. Have you ever seen a nature spirit? Asked Sally. Oh yes, I see them, said Grandma. Not everyone can, for they don't know how to look, neither do they hear, for their world is full of noise and clutter, and they are only happy, rushing about and wearing themselves out. If you walk quietly in nature, if you see and hear and smell and feel and imagine, you will hear her rhythms, for we are a part of her and should be connected. We also are part of nature's beauty. Most people today haven't become aware of this. My greatest wish is for mankind to realise their connection with the earth and its inhabitants. The world will be better for it. Sally wanted to know what to do. Should she ever see nature spirits again? You will see, said Grandma. You will see them all your life, as I have, if you remember what I tell you. Speak quietly to them in your mind, not out loud. When they are ready and trust you, they will answer you by the way of thoughts, in your mind and feelings in your heart. This will shape you as a person, and you will be attracted to people who feel the same way. That is a good thing. It means you will be surrounded by people who love and support you for who you are, even at times when you are distant from each other. You will be blessed by your friendships. You will carry those people around in your heart and will not be totally lonely, as some people are just now. Sally was overwhelmed with love for her wise old grandma and vowed to be like her when she grew up. She put the phone down and went to give her parents a hug. They smiled warmly at her. Sally would not tell them what Grandma had shared, for now it would be their secret. After all, Mum and Dad were of a generation that too often were rushing here and there. She had a plan. After lockdown, when people were hoping to return to the normal life they craved, Sally would request that they took more walks in the woods instead of going off to town in the car. Perhaps she could lead them to discover for themselves the magical tree energy and the wonder of nature.